Happy Sunday, all you Minties. This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And today I'm going to be doing an overview of the 52 Omnibus. This is the 2022 edition. So, let's get started. And welcome back, everybody. So here we have the latest printing of the 52 Omnibus. This is an omnibus that came out about 10 years ago. So on the left hand side is my original printing, the one from 2012. And the big difference right that you can see on the cover is the new DC logo they are using. This is the old DC logo. Every so many decades they change the DC logo, but this is the brand new one they are using. The color on the new printing is a little bit darker than the color in the original printing. And you can probably tell about the darker colors more so on the spine here. The original printing having a lighter blue, this one leaning more towards purple. But yeah, you could tell that it is darker. And again, the new DC logo, 52 logo, is still the same. And then the back of the book. The big difference here is the new ISBN and of course the new pricing. The original printing was $150, which was really expensive back then, 10 years ago. The new printing is $175. Now, underneath the dust jackets is the exact same design, which is kind of weird. I was thinking maybe they would have put some art on board. But it is this engraving right here of 52 Omnibus, and here on the side, kind of see it says 52, the creators, and they're all embossed, nothing on the back, and that's the exact same design they used for the original Omnibus, which you can tell there, and then on the spine. Now the page count is exactly the same as before, 1216 pages. That's exactly how many pages you get in this one. The big problem with the original printing, and I'm just going to go ahead and show you, is that block right there. The binding on a lot of our copies fell apart. Even after properly opening up the Omnibus, this is the new printing right here, they just fell apart. I think it was just a bad batch of books that came out. And I guess some people still have it intact. Maybe they have it sealed, I don't know. But I remember that being a huge complaint in a lot of the forums I used to frequent, that the book was just falling apart. I saw pictures of people's actual block just completely come off. So I guess I'm lucky that mine kind of stayed intact. But yeah, it was notorious for having bad binding. So we are going to be talking about the binding of this one here in a little bit. But first, let's look at the artwork, talk about the stories that are in here, and then we'll do a comparison to this one. Now, I've done a reading order of DC events. It's a video where I talk about the DC events that have been collected in different collected editions, and you saw where 52 fit in. It was right after Infinite Crisis. So after the events of Infinite Crisis, we went to 52. It was an unprecedented historical event for DC Comics. It was amazing to read this every week. Here is your introduction by Paul Levitz. And previously. Now, one of the biggest questions I get on my Saturday Q&As is, do I need to have read Infinite Crisis to enjoy this book? Not really, because this gives you kind of a page recap what happened in Infinite Crisis, and then you jump right in with week number 1. So this works as a big gap filler between Infinite Crisis and the event at DC known as 1 Year Later. It wasn't really an event, it was a label that all the books had. So pretty much every book, whether it was Batman, Detective Comics, Superman, Action Comics, Wonder Woman, Teen Titans, jumped ahead a year after the big Infinite Crisis event. So a lot of the characters had changed, the teams had changed, like Justice League had some new team members, JSA had some new team members, and this worked in a way to kind of give you an idea what happened those missing 52 weeks in a year. Hence the title, 52. So every week for a year, there was a new comic, and it was 52, week 1, 52, week 28, 52, week 50. You get the idea. And it worked like, yeah, this is exactly what happened to the heroes. Because in 1 year later, you see that Batman is not really Bruce Wayne anymore. So what happened? Or Superman lost his abilities to fly. What's going on with that? And who is Wonder Woman? Which, anyway, that became a convoluted mess later on when we couldn't get the writer to stick to the book. But this was the idea. Let's go back and tell stories. So this was all helmed by Jeff Johns, Mark Waid, Grant Morrison, and Greg Rucka. And it's just a beautiful mix of magical stories, crime stories, superhero stories, and I know a lot of people when this came out, when this was solicited, they were so excited. Oh, you get to find out how Superman lost his powers. But it became so much more than that, because it became kind of a big mystery that starts at the beginning and you don't get exactly what's going on until the very end. And it's less about Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and more about characters like Booster Gold, Renee Montoya, Black Adam. And it's got this probably one of the best, if not the very best, Black Adam story. I'm going to just skip some pages here. It's a big redeeming arc for the character. You have the character of Steel with his niece. You have some members of the JSA. I thought this was such a unique way of telling a story. And every week you had something to look forward to. This is when I was still buying weekly books before I said, no more weekly books. I'm going to go to just collected editions. So you have the Question, and there's also a little bit of like legacy in here, like what happens to some of these characters and where their new status quos are. Now, I will say something that I'm a little disappointed in with this edition. And it doesn't make it less perfect, because I thought the collection was great to begin with, but I wish they had included a couple of things. Especially when we have 1,216 pages, we're charging $175 for the book, but I kind of wish they had put this in there. This is the long out of print World War III. You can see up here from the pages of 52. This takes place, this whole little mini series takes place between issues 49 and 50 of this series right here. And it's pretty much, well, it's a big ass fight between Black Adam and a bunch of characters. And you can tell why as you're reading these particular stories. Oh man, there are some really messed up moments in here that I did not see coming. I remember there were a lot of shocking moments. But I mean, that's what happens whenever you have writers like Grant Morrison and Greg Rucka writing the crime and magical aspect of things. There's also one thing that doesn't need to be included. You don't need to read it, but I wish they had included too. Especially if you're going to have a new edition, take the time to make it expanded. I kind of wish both Marvel and DC did that a little bit more. But here we have the DC Universe Origins. This is the new history of the DC Universe. So after each issue, so after like issue number 1 here, at the very end of issue number 1, when it was coming out in single issues, you would have something called the new history of the DC Universe. I believe this is written by all 4 of the creators, Grant Morrison, Mark Waid, Greg Rucka, and Jeff Johns. So you would have 2 pages pretty much just giving you a history of where these characters are, or who these characters are, their new origin. I love this one. It's written by Mark Waid and drawn by Brian Boland. Oh, that's so awesome. But it's just 2 pages of like the origin of Bane. I know most people probably didn't ask for that one, but interesting. And it is done in alphabetical order, at least this particular. Oh my gosh, more Brian Boland artwork. But I know we have a new status quo. I know we have a new Earth, especially after the New 52 and Rebirth and whatever the hell we're doing these days. It's almost... I had a conversation with a good friend of mine about, did Hal Jordan really become the Spectre? Is that still in canon history? Because we were thinking about Grant Morrison's series, and before that it was the New 52. And I was being honest. I'm like, I really can't remember if that really happened or not. But anyway, back to this. So in here, yes, you are going to have stories about Adam Strange, Starfire, and pretty much the characters that were lost in space. They get to come back. You get to see a new Firestorm. And to me, this was just such a great, fun series. Very experimental. And it worked so damn well that they did a follow-up to this. They did something called Countdown. Now, that wasn't as successful, and then they did something called Trinity. And Countdown led into, well, it was supposed to lead into Final Crisis, and then Trinity, I think, was just an experimental weekly comic. I think trying to just, this is Derek Robertson on art. So you also have a lot of wonderful talent that draws a lot of these particular issues in here. But my point was, I think this was lightning in a bottle. And I didn't say that because I just saw Black Adam. But it was lightning in a bottle that you can't recapture that magic again. Whenever you have these 4 talented writers, focusing on the birth of the new Batwoman, who is going to be the new Question. What the hell did Booster Gold's whiteboard say at the end of, or towards the future? And who is he related to? Like, what does it all have to do? There's a lot of deaths in here, too, that changes some of the things that happen later on in the new Justice League book or the new JSA book. And the whole crime thing is so awesome because it's kind of Ralph Dibny redeeming himself after the loss of Sue in the pages of Identity Crisis. And I'm throwing these events and names out there for the people that have read these books. And for you that have not read Identity Crisis or Infinite Crisis or know who Ralph and Sue Dibny are, you're not going to be that confused, I swear, because the writers do such an excellent job of reintroducing these characters like you're reading them for the first time. Like if you don't know who Renee Montoya is or The Question, who they are, this is actually written by Greg Rucka. Greg Rucka does a phenomenal job of reintroducing you to these characters, like I mentioned, as if you were reading them for the first time. The new gods are in here. The old gods are in here. Lobo makes an appearance. But yeah, this is a wonderful story. I'm glad it's back to print. And we'll look at the binding here in a little bit to compare it to that first binding. But like I said, just a very minute thing. I wish they had taken the time to expand on this Omnibus 10 years later, just adding those stories that I thought should have been added to begin with, at least the WW3. But this is what it looks like. Now, I'm sure one of the big questions I'm going to get is it confusing to read about all these characters? Is it too much to get to know the Metal Man in there? Is it too much of a story about the Question if I don't really care about that character and I care more about characters like Booster Gold or Black Adam? I think the balance is so good in this. That's what made this work. Whether you care about a particular ongoing story or not, the other stories will just hook you. I love that about this because, yeah, I get it. Not everybody's a fan of Ralph Dibny. Not everybody's a fan of Lobo, and you could care less about outer space stuff. But they do bring you back here. That's the beauty of having 4 different talented writers, that it all comes back to tell one big continuing story. So the very beginning here, you're introduced to elements that actually don't get resolved until much later. I thought that was a really cool way of doing it. And I'm sure that, of course, has a lot to do with editorial, keeping up with the notes and everything. All the covers, all the 52 covers in here are supplied by J.G. Jones. And on the opposite page is like some of the sketches and ideas that he had. Those were actually collected in a hardcover called the 52 covers. That's all it was. It was just the covers. And then on the back you got to see like the sketches. The only other thing that I wish they had kept in here, let's go back over here. Alright, so let's look at the extras. So here are the covers to the 4 trade paperbacks. That's the way that I had them. And let me tell you, back in 2012, I was debating on actually keeping my trade paperbacks, because my trade paperbacks actually had more extras. There was a commentary all the way in the back by Jeff Johns and by, I think it was Mark Waid and Dan Didio, that I wish they had kept in this. Sketches, there were more sketches in those 4 trade paperbacks than the sketches you get back here, because this is pretty much all the extras that you get for this book. And I realize it's already 1,216 pages, but they could have added about 100 more pages, I think. So you do get some character designs and character sketches, like this new Batwoman, who is to become Batwoman. The designs, of course, done by Alex Ross. You get the covers to the trade paperbacks, and I think that's the cover to the novelization right there. Because DC had a tendency to just make a novel out of these events and books. But yes, this is the 52. Let's talk about the binding here. 1,216 pages, and that's what the eye looks like. And honestly, I'm happy with that eye. Now, it could be that I'm accustomed to the Obsidian and Jade. Oh man, this is such a good book. Maybe it was because I was so used to that eye on the original copy here that I'm happy with that eye. It does, it definitely needs to be stretched, that spine. because you always have this heavy paper here on the end paper that kind of gets the book to try to close. But honestly, after stretching the spine a couple times and after a read, you should be good. That glue is going to crack. So it doesn't matter if it's towards the front or you're looking at the book towards the very back. And the paper quality, let's talk about that because I did want to see something. Let me see. The paper quality is just a little bit thinner. And I mean little bit, at least from what I'm feeling here. Now, I could be wrong. I'm feeling the original one here at the top. I'm not sure if you can tell or not. But yeah, just a little bit thinner. Now, let's do a comparison in the artwork, the internal art here. Alright, so we have the original printing up at the top, the new printing at the bottom. And one thing I can tell is that the colors are not just darker on the dust jacket, but they also are darker on the actual internal pages. Like the grays are a lot more grayer here, where they're a little bit bluish up at the top on the clouds. Let's look at the next page here. Yeah, they seem to be just a little more vibrant up at the top. Don't know why. Even the grays that they're using, the tones right there, are different than the tones here. Could be the different printers. The original printing is printed at the R.R. Donnelly printer when it was in Ohio. And this one was printed at the Transcontinental printer in Canada. So, could be that they were using different inks. Let's keep going. Just do a quick little comparison. I'm mainly noticing the colors. And just like I said, the page is just a little bit thinner, or the paper stock, than this. And it's not bad at all. Like, the colors are still vibrant here, but they're just a little bit darker. That's the only big difference I notice. And I realize that this is not a fair comparison because my original binding is falling apart. So, of course, the book is going to lay over better just when it comes to spread pages. But I did want to just kind of pinpoint the just gutter curve and gutter loss that you're going to have in the new printing. Until, like I said, you break the spine. I mean, so you are going to have to hold down the pages a little bit whenever they're spread pages towards the beginning or towards the end. Like if you want to see all of Beast Boy's face right there. But honestly, you almost have to do that with the original printing, and that's with a whacked out binding on that eye there. But I wanted to look at a couple more pages. This is another spread. Again, the green is a little bit more vibrant up here. And a little, actually, this is a weird change because now the colors are a little bit lighter down here. Not that big, like I said, it's not that big of a deal at all. But mainly it's just the gutter curve that you have here. So you are going to get some gutter loss. Not that the original binding is that much better. And here's another comparison where it's more vibrant. I do tend to favor the colors up here a little more than the new printing. The new printing seems like it's got a lighter tone to it. Almost, I don't want to say whitewashed, but it definitely has a lighter tone than the colors that they were using in the original printing. Now, like I mentioned, could be because they're using different printers, could be because they're using different inks. Just one more comparison. This is towards about half of the book here, where you have the original printing with more vibrant colors that are a little bit duller here. Contrast is better up there. Like I said, it's not that big of a deal. But in case you have the original one with bad binding and thinking about upgrading, or if you want to try to fix the binding yourself, it's up to you. But this is the big difference in the colors. Alright, I lied. Just one more comparison. But that's it. That's the difference. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of the 2022 edition of the 52 Omnibus. So let me know in the comments down below if this was a book that you missed out on. If you're upgrading your bad binding 52 original Omnibus, I know a lot of people who's kind of fell apart. But yeah, I would love to know if you are upgrading to the 2022 edition. And of course, if you thought they should have added the history of the DC Universe and World War III in this particular edition. Because, I mean, it was a new printing. So, anyway, leave your questions, comments down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and Patreon. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.